Hey everyone, it's Tina from Tina's Crafty Crochet, and I'm finally to the point where I can put together the window pane granny square that I've worked up. I use the triple puff, granny square, and I'll put the link to that below. And I picked 4 colors of I Love This Yarn. The Glacier, Peacock, Turquoise, and Gray Mist. And I just sketched out how I wanted to do it. And each pane has 4 squares in it. And then I've edged each one with a different color. And there's all my squares ready to go into the final blanket, except for the last pane. And these are the 4 that I've done, and I'm going to show you how I've put them together. What I'm going to do, instead of whip stitching them together, I'm just going to slip stitch, and I want to take and put them right sides facing. Camera angle's kind of tricky here. And I go ahead and just flip it like this. And then I'm using a G hook. And I'm putting all of my squares together with the Glacier, because I seem to have had a little more of that. And then, if you can see, I'm going right here in this corner. And I'm going through the back loop only. And then of the other corner, I'm going in the back loop only of it as well. And then I'm just going to pull through and pull through. And I'm going to throw my tail out of the way. And then I'm going into the back loop. Let's make sure I've got them even. Yes. This camera angle is a little tricky, because it's such a big project. And just through the back loops, if you can see, only, and just slip stitching. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each stitch across the top, make sure you get all the yarn for the loop, because sometimes it likes to pile on you. And you know, it's just simple slip stitching where you go through your stitch, pull up a loop, and then pull it through. But the tutorial for the triple granny square, which I did not design, but the lovely designer gave me permission to do the tutorial. I'll put that link in the description box below. And I will, I'm going to slip stitch all the way to the end here. And then I will be back and show you how I join them. So I only have, 2 rows of slip stitching to have to worry about tails. Because let me tell you, with 96 squares, there was a lot of tails to sew in. Alright, so I'll meet you back at the end down here. Okay, now I have ended just right in the corner like I started over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my yarn down. I'm going to pick up my next 2 squares. And I'm going to line them up. And I never remove my hook. And then I'm going to go into that first corner, slide them down, pull up my yarn, and slip stitch them together. Yeah, it's a little floppy, but if you work on a surface, it makes it a lot easier than like working on your lap, because, they kind of flop around. Now, I made the squares while I watched TV and did this and that, but the assembly, I have to have my table. And then I'm going to slip stitch all the way to the end, and I'll show you how I bind it off. We'll cut our yarn, and we will get to seaming this together. Okay, I'm down to the last slip stitch. So I'm just going to finish that one up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain one. And then I'm going to cut my yarn. And I'm just going to pull that through and tighten that knot. And that is the first seam. So I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to fold it over. And I'm going to take my glacier. And I'm going to make a slip knot. Insert my hook. Find the corner. And when I'm doing this, I like to do it in the back loops with the right sides facing, because it gives you a nice seam. And just remember, that's the closest loop and the furthest loop from you. And so now I'm going to slip stitch, tighten that up, and I will continue to slip stitch. And when I get here, I'll show you how I do that so we don't have a gaping hole in the middle. Okay, I am down to the last 2 stitches before the slip stitch line. So I'm just going to go in here. And I'm going to slip stitch. Now, what I want to do is I want to go under this where it's slip stitched from the opposite direction and just put a slip stitch in that. And then I'm going to jump across. And this one's usually the harder one to get to. Just cram your hook in there and slip stitch there. And that closes up your center really well. And then you continue to slip stitch across. And I will knot and cut at the end. And I'll come back and I'll show you how I put my edge trim on for the pane. And I will be right back. Okay, I have my pane all connected together, and this is what it looks like. And I love the way this seam just folds together. It almost looks quilted, and you know, like the seam in a window. And I only have the 4 tails to worry about, but since they're knotted, I'm just going to crochet the tails into the edge. And this one, this is pane number 4. I did 4 different excuse me, 4 different panes, and then I just did repeats and did a pattern inside the pattern. So I will have 4 panes across and 6 panes down, and I will connect them with the slip stitch just like I did these, and then sew in the tails. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to put a border around the whole thing or not as of yet, but that'll have to wait until I'm done, because here's all the rest of my squares, and I have a lot of slip stitching left to do. So to do the border, let me find the end of my yarn, and we're going to make a slip knot, insert our hook, and then I'm going to come back into this top corner, and I'm going to go through both loops right in the hole there, because this pattern, the last round on the granny square in the corners is a single crochet, a chain 1, a single crochet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch to join. And since I'm tired of doing tails, I'm just going to lay that up there, and I'm just going to crochet over it and to conceal it. And I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to half double crochet in this corner. If I can get my yarn to cooperate. So I just yarned over, pulled up a loop, yarned over, pulled through 3. Now, right here in the corner, you have to get this first stitch. It's going to look like you're putting extra stitches in the chain one space, but you're not. And then I'm just going to half double crochet all the way to the join, and then I will pick up this other tail and crochet that in. And now this space here, we're going to put one here and one here, but we're going to skip this knot, and it'll come out fine once you get around, because this has 2 rounds of half double crochet, and in the corners we're going to do a half double crochet, chain 1, and a half double crochet. So I'm going to continue to half double across. This first row always tends to give me problems. It's because the single crochet seems to be a little tighter than the half double. But if you just take your time and be consistent. I mean, if you want to use a double here, I mean, if you don't want to crochet over your tails, and you want to sew them in, but after doing 96 granny squares and sewing all the tails, because half of them were multicolored, I did 8 different squares, and I had to do a dozen of each for the size blanket that I wanted. And if I'd used a smaller hook and yarn, then I would have had to have done a lot more squares, and I just didn't want to do that. And what I do is I just keep pulling my tail kind of tight, and it looks all bunched up. But when I get to the end of this, I'll show you how I make that disappear, which we are about to where I need to work on it. Okay, so now all I'm going to do, and my tail disappeared. And now we're here, close to the join. And I'm going to put one here. And now you can go through both loops here, but I've just been going through this one to raise that half double up a little bit, because it's not really enough height difference to put a double crochet there, because it would just be, you know, really tall compared to the rest of the stitches, and I don't want that. So now I've started with this tail, and I will meet you at the corner and show you how to set up the corners. Okay, I am at my corner, and what I want to do is I want to put one more half double crochet here, right up to that chain 1, and then I want to do one half double, chain 1, and another half double in that chain 1 space. And then I'm going to flip my stuff over so I can work down the other side, and I've got to get that first stitch there and do a half double in it, and then I just continue all the way around and work the seams just like I did the first one, and the corners like I did this one. And I'll meet you up at the end and show you how to join and start the second round of the border. Okay, so we are back to the corner. I just have a few more stitches to do, and we did our first half double in the corner, so we're just going to put one and then a chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch into the first half double. Now that brings us out of the corner and into the first stitch of the next round. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our chain 1, and we're going to half double in that same stitch that we chained 1 in, and that leaves our corner completely open. So we're going to do the same, 1 half double, chain 1, 1 half double in each corner, and I'll show you how to finish it off once you get all the way around, and then we'll have our trim one. Okay, we are back to our corner of this final round of border, and I'm going to do the last 2 half double crochets before we get to the chain 1 space, and we have nothing in that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our half double, chain 1, half double, and slip stitch into the top of that first chain that we made. And then I'm going to do the seamless join, which is I'm going to pull up my loop. I'm going to go into the next stitch from the back of my work, put my loop on my hook, pull it through, grab my scissors, cut. I need new scissors apparently, and then pull this through, and that is the finished border. Let me pick up the camera here. Oh, sorry about that. Now that is the finished border, and that's the rest of them, and I'm going to put the link to my Facebook page in the description box below as always, and you can see the finished put together project on Facebook. I hope this has helped you, and I will remember to put the link for the tutorial for the triple puff granny square, which is what I used as my base granny square, and all of them I just changed up the color in them. And as always, until next time, happy hooking.